Welcome to Great Points, financial insights for improving your relationship with money. I'm Matt Schroeder, certified financial planner and director of financial planning at Great Point Wealth Advisors, a fee-only registered investment advisory firm with offices in Boston and Danvers, Massachusetts. Welcome to our April edition of Financial Tips for Newer Planners. As always, I'm joined with my partner, Brandon Parker. Welcome, Brandon.
Morning, Matt. Thanks for having me.
Not a problem. Thanks for making it up to Danvers to do this recording. Today we're going to be talking about summer budgets. And, when you think about where we are right now in the beginning of April, it might be, questioning why are we talking about summer budgets? I'm going to start by trying to paint a little bit of a picture, and then it'll help you understand why we're talking about this today and not in 2 or 3 months. So picture this. It's, let's say, September, October, fall starting to set into New England. You go to the mailbox or you open up your inbox and you have your most recent credit card statement. It pops up and says your bill is ready to be paid. You open it up, you look at the balance, and right immediately you see the number, and maybe it has a few extra digits or a bigger first digit than you're used to seeing, and you know that there's no way that I can pay this bill off. So, for some people, that might create anger. So others, they might start to get upset. What happened? Did I actually spend all this money? Where did it? What did it go to? And then maybe some apathy about what's happening. So you look at the bill, you process it, maybe you close the email, you come back to it a couple days later, and ultimately what you end up doing is you pay whatever you can, or maybe you pay the minimum for that month, and you have maybe a plan to chip away at it. And usually what I find is that by the time most people have a plan, like when they get their annual bonus or their tax return, to kind of clean up any outstanding credit card debt. So you get through the holidays, you get into February, March, you get a bonus, you get a small tax return, you get that balance down to zero, and you vow that this will never happen again. Now, when we think about that situation, I don't think when April came around last year, people set out with the goal of, I'm going to try to overspend this summer so that I'm have some credit card debt that I'm going to have to dig myself out of a hole for the next 9 months just to get back to zero to where I am today. So knowing that planning to fail is not what most people do, it's really just the opposite. It's the, failing to plan or lack of kind of forward looking. So today we're going to talk a little about what that might look like and just a little bit of planning. We're also going to talk about to expect the unexpected. So, every perfect plan is only as good as, once you kind of get smacked in the face, that plan, is really going to be put to the test. And then really setting some acceptable ranges about what a good summer would look like and what maybe you have a little bit of credit card debt, but it's manageable, or it's something that, isn't going to kind of, take a whole year to chip away at. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And then we'll try to give you some action items or things that you can maybe put in play today into your life that, might help you feel more empowered throughout the summer. So first thing we're going to talk about today are what are some of the expenses that creep up when it comes to summer unexpecteds. So Brandon, you've, we kind of think about your life last couple summers. I know what you have going on this summer, which is going to be a relatively large bill, but what do you see? Some of the things that are kind of unexpected expenses that kind of pop into your daily, your budget in the summertime.
Yeah, it always seems to be the summer, doesn't it? It might be as simple as vacations. You might be attending other people's weddings. Might be just an extra night. You want to sit out on a patio somewhere and have a couple drinks and a couple extra appetizers that you wouldn't have in the wintertime when it's 45 degrees or colder around here. So yeah, things like that can kind of sneak up on you and add up over time.
Yeah, and I definitely think it's, if you live in a place that gets cold in the winter, this tends to be, a little bit more of maybe a New England or a Northeast situation. Because if you're, if it's always 70 degrees and sunny, the desire to go out on a Tuesday night to grab drinks and sit out on the deck isn't that motivating if you could do it 12 months of the year. But here in New England, where you have a relatively short summer, it's like, hey, I got to take advantage of it, because who knows? It could be 47 degrees on 4th of July this year. If it's June 15th and it's nice out, I'm going to go out and hang out with some friends. You mentioned kind of weddings. Sometimes you get invited to the wedding, and it seems like now most weddings seem to be destination weddings, or friends are moving around. So there's, it's not just, go down to the Danvers port and, then drive home. It's a flight, a hotel. And, when you think about that, you can even have the best budget and say, okay, well, I know the flight is $375. I know our hotel room is $230. But then there's all these other things that kind of creep up around the wedding. Uber expenses, with that unexpected, hey, before the event, we're going to go hang out for a little bit somewhere else. And, those can add, I don't know, what's a good number, 50, 100, a couple $100 extra to the weekend?
Yeah, and sometimes it's buy a new dress, buy, a new suit or rent a suit or whatever it might be. Those little secondary things add up, even if you do have one free night on the wedding party.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different expenses that can kind of creep into it that aren't necessarily part of your budget. And for the most part, you might use it on a debit card. Once the debit card's out of money, then you probably will switch to a credit card. And it's really easy to kind of just, hey, you know what, it's there. But all those other expenses go on top of any other recurring expenses that you have on that credit card. So if you have your cell phone bill charged or, certain monthly subscription charges coming out of there. So all these unexpecteds kind of go on top of what you're already paying. So, when you think about, what your choices are, well, okay, it's my best friend or a really good friend, and I'm not going to not go to their wedding. So what do I do? So when we think about, kind of setting some expectations or priorities in your summer, that's really what we want to talk about today. So, right now we're sitting in April. You look at your calendar. So one simple thing is take the calendar out or scroll through your phone. And by now, I don't know, when would someone, if there was a wedding in the middle of July, when would they get the invitation?
You probably get the invitation about 2 weeks ahead, but you get your save the dates usually about 6 months ahead of time. So you should have a pretty good idea when it's going to be. And, if it's somebody you're close to, you'll have a good sense of where and some of the other kind of ancillary expenses too.
Right. So you've got the save the date. So you have your calendar, you have a list of save the dates, and maybe you've already, you said you haven't gotten the invitation, haven't RSVP'd yet, but you're already talking about whether or not you're going. So you could actually go out to the summer and say, okay, I've got one wedding, I've got 3 weddings, I've got 5 weddings. What was your busiest wedding season? How many save the dates was the most you ever got?
Yeah, the last couple of years were pretty busy. I think we had, between myself and my fiance, I had 7 last year. So yeah, this year's a little quieter. Most of my friends are married at this point, but that was a lot.
Yeah, so if you're sitting there with 7 save the dates and you already are saying, geez, month to month, things are a little bit tough, you might have to start to prioritize. So you could just say yes to everything and just run up the credit card debt and say, I'll figure it out when I'm older, and that's going to be my plan, which is a fine plan if you don't then complain about the credit card bill for the next 3 years while you're trying to chip away at it. So if your decision is to just go with it, live for today, spend whatever I got to spend, I'll figure it out later, that's fine. You just want to own that decision and make it part of your mantra of, hey, that's the bill. I know I'm paying some extra interest, but I'm fine with it. I've made this choice, and I do it again 10 times over. But for others, they get anxious, they get nervous. They don't necessarily want to be buried in debt to go to somebody else's wedding, but they don't want to disappoint a friend who invited them to their wedding. We're all dealing with these challenges. We were actually one of the first of our friends to get married, and then we started having kids. So, destination weddings were really tough for us. So we got, it was easier for us to say, hey, well, we can't make the wedding, but here's a gift. And, we really wish we could be there, but, travel and daycare and family planning was impossible. So if you don't have the kids excuse, you might have to just get a little more of a tough love message. So if you have 7 weddings and you maybe can only afford to go to 4, put them on the list and say, okay, you know what? I have to disappoint somebody, and you know what? The one that's the furthest away or is probably going to add the most to my budget. I would love to go, but I'm going to send. I can't attend, and I'm going to send them a gift or a well wishes, present to let them know that I care and I wanted to be there. I know with our wedding, our wedding planner told us to plan for more people that are going to show up. So we were actually hoping some people would say no. So depending on where you're going or what venue they're going to, they might, appreciate a no from a few people that might be coming from further away. So one thing you could do is look at your summer events and start to prioritize. So weddings is a big one. You mentioned travel or family.
Yep.
some families are very organized, and they've mapped it out, and everyone knows where we're going and what we're going and who's paying for what. But some other families are a little bit more, hey, let's do this. So when you think about your family, you can kind of same idea. You could be proactive. Say, hey, look, if you know you've got that sibling or cousin who's always going to come up with a crazy idea at the last minute, and then make you feel guilty if you can't go or don't want to do it, you might have to be proactive. So you've got that last minute relative, and you don't want to disappoint them. So you can almost rehearse. Me and Brandon were talking about this earlier. So if you want to say no, how can you say no nicely to a relative?
Yeah, it's always a tricky one, right? There's a few different kind of approaches you can take. One of them is, just to be honest about what you're trying to accomplish and say, hey, we're on a little bit of a tight budget this summer. We have X, Y, Z other activities that we already have planned and we can't make it. I'm sorry. There's also the kind of white lies you can tell a little bit, like, oh, we have a conflict. It's X, Y, Z. It's some other event that we already are going to, or something along those lines as well.
Yeah, you just got to make sure all the decision makers have the same story lined up.
For sure.
Yeah. The other thing you can do is practice. So and be proactive. So if you know that cousin is going to, or I'm going to say cousin, but who knows what they are in your family, but they're going to come up with something crazy, you could reach out to them in advance and just say, hey, look, I know each summer we've done some great things, and I really appreciate it. This summer is going to be tough for me. So when you come up with the plan, maybe leave me off the invite list, or if you could just not invite me this year. I really want to be there, but I know with work, family, we're trying to save up a few extra bucks for a down payment on a home, or we know we've got 3 weddings in the fall we've got to save our money for. And to Brandon's point, they'll appreciate that honesty, and they may give you a hard time or still invite you, but when they invite you later and then you say no, they should know that it's coming from a good place. So get out your dates and start to prioritize. So things that you're being invited to, those are the easy ones. So you've got weddings, your family goes to the Cape or wants to go to Maine, and you have to decide whether or not you're going to join. Maybe there's someone's turning 70 and there's a cruise that you have to decide if you're going to go on. So you get to prioritize. The other things that kind of pop up that are unexpected, so we talked about expect the unexpected, those are the dinners out, the charity golf outing that you get invited to play in, and not necessarily, like I said, you can't plan for them all, but you should at least, you're getting some general experience in life. So hey, look, last year I got invited to 2 charity golf outings when I didn't think I was going to go to any. And I went to both of them. They were great. But once I got there, I bought $100 in raffle tickets, and then we went out for drinks afterwards, and it ended up costing me $200 or $300. So you're not sure where those charity invites are going to come from, but you might get 1 or 2 this summer. So you might say, look, if I get 2, I'm only going to play in 1. Or you know what? I don't really like golf that much, so I'm going to say no, and maybe I'll meet them out at the bar after the fact. So you can kind of expect the unexpected around friend get-togethers, charity events, concerts. It seems like all the entertainers want to be in New England in the summertime, and there's plenty of venues and things pop up. And Tuesday night, your friend wants to go on the weekend. Like I said, you don't have to say yes or no right now. But if you kind of look at the last couple summers and say, well, I went to 4 concerts and I didn't think I was going to any. Those invites are probably going to show up again this summer. So same idea. You can say, well, I'm expecting I'll probably get 2 or 3. I'd like to go to 1 or 2, or I know I definitely want to go to something with this friend because I don't really get to see him a lot in the winter. So maybe I'll be proactive and reach out to them and say, hey, let's do something. We don't have to decide just now, but I'm going to block off some of my funds to do this. Do you want to do that with me? So you can kind of be you can kind of expect the unexpected to kind of build out that budget. And we kind of talked about the last one, how to say no to friends. There's no perfect way, but being upfront and honest is always probably the best. The white lies, can work sometimes. So and then try to be as proactive, and if you're making decisions that align with what your values are. So what's important to you financially, both either today or in the future, whether that's trying to avoid going into debt or trying to stay disciplined to your savings, or you're saving for a goal, whether it be, later this year or a few years out. If you're making decisions that align with those values and things that are important to you, no one's really going to give you a hard time. No one's going to, lose respect in you or stop being your friend because you made a decision that was really smart and well thought out and planned and coordinated. If anything, they might be a little bit jealous that you had the discipline to do that. So, knowing that you're going to say no, that idea of FOMO is going to creep in. And that's always going to be a part of life. And if you said yes to everything, you'll probably see at least a few social media posts that you're like, oh, I wish I had gone to that too. So there's always going to be more stuff to do than there is money to do it with. But the goal of this episode and some of the exercises I would encourage you to do is just do a little bit of planning. So look out 3 months and just say, hey, look, I know over the next 3 or 4 months, expenses always pop up. We always spend more money in the summertime. Here's what I'm going to do. And maybe you're going to find, hey, I really like kayaking. It doesn't mean you have to go buy a kayak this summer. You might fall in love with or wanting to try surfing. Once again, you can plan ahead and say, look, I know I love outdoor sports. Things creep up. I love doing fun things. I'm going to set a budget of $400 for that type of stuff. And then what you can do is maybe over the next 3 months, knowing that you're that type of person, try to take $100 a month or $800 in each paycheck and put it somewhere that is kind of out of sight, out of mind. And or maybe it's the old envelope system, so you might take it out of your check and put it in an envelope. And don't remember where the envelope is so you don't forget later, but don't remember too well that you can go grab it for next month's expenses and things like that. But if you can kind of maybe start to set some money aside now, that'll either reduce the amount of debt you have to build up or, keep things within range. And the other final note and kind of key to success is knowing that you have to have an acceptable range of outcomes. So if you say, I'm not going to have any credit card debt at the end of the summer, that means if you finish the summer with $25 in credit card debt, you failed. $25 in credit card debt's not a big deal. It's not a failure. So you want to make sure you have acceptable ranges. So, maybe on the plus side, you end with no credit card debt and $500 more in savings than you thought because you were able to manage things a little more effectively. Maybe on the other end, $500 to $1,000 in credit card debt, but you know that you can work some overtime in September, October and get that done and paid off before the holiday bills start to creep in. So, I'm saying maybe 15 to 20 minutes of planning. Like I said, you get your calendar out, do some ballpark things you spent last summer, and just have a general idea around it. And it'll really empower you to make good decisions as we get into, April, May, June, and then, once you're in the game in July and August, doing your best to kind of stay ahead of things. So, ultimately, like I said, there's no perfect solution. When you're earlier in your career, you always want more money, and there's not enough money to do all the fun things that you're going to have opportunities to. Hopefully you can start to, try to set priorities and make a few, maybe make 6 out of 10 good decisions this summer, and you can start to see that that'll really start to pay dividends over the course of time. So, as we start to wrap up, Brandon, any final tips, or maybe someone who's got to plan a wedding, any other things you would advice you'd give the listeners?
No, just underline a couple things you said that I loved. So one is, if you go in with a goal, you go in with an idea of what you want to come out of the summer with, it's going to be that much easier to stick to the plan over time. So I really like that. And then the other is kind of know what your your bugaboos are, the things that might pop up that might kind of get you. For me, I know I play more golf in the summer, so I tend to spend more money because of that. So knowing that ahead of time, it allows you to think through, all right, how do I want to trade off what I spend maybe in January so that I can have enough money in the summer to not worry about it. So those are the things that I think are really important going in. And you covered off on a few of them.
That's great. Excellent. Well, as we say in a lot of these episodes, there's not a perfect strategy or perfect solution for everybody, but there is definitely a right plan or plan or approach for you. So once again, thanks for listening. And until next time, have a good one. Now, I hope you can apply some of what you heard today to improve your relationship with money. And thanks again for listening. Until next time, on Great Points with Matt Schroeder.
Great Points is hosted by Matt Schroeder. Great Point Wealth Advisors is a registered investment advisory firm regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission in accordance and compliance with the securities laws and regulations. Great Point Wealth Advisors does not render or offer to render personalized investment or tax advice through Great Points. The information provided is for informational purposes only and does not constitute financial, tax, investment, or legal advice.